Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and I have a guest this evening. Josh is from the Woodstock Apothecary, and we will be announcing his name several times through the hour so that everyone can be reminded, because everyone likes to know that Josh is here and that he's from the Woodstock Apothecary, because I've really gotten some notices about that. And this program is Take This Bread. This is the program from the Good Neighbor Food Pantry. And we have a most interesting program tonight. Josh is going to be talking about a whole bunch of really interesting things. Right before we go into our program with Josh, I'm going to talk a little bit about upcoming events in the Good Neighbor Food Pantry. One is that on October the 20th, right here in Woodstock's own community center, we're going to have the Milk and Honey percussionists, Joya Tempanelli, Story Lori is going to come. We have several different storytellers, and we are going to have the most delightful and engaging evening of some extremely spiritual and powerful women, keeping us entertained from 8 to 10 p.m. And all the proceeds from this evening, which will be donations, will go to purchase items of dignity, such as razor blades and toothbrushes and toothpaste and deodorant and bars of soap. So we really are looking forward to having you visit us on the 20th of October. I am also here to let everyone know that we did choose a winner for the 50-50 raffle. We've called her a couple of 3 times. She has not answered our call. And so if you've gotten a phone call, if you've gotten some phone messages that you haven't listened to, please listen to your phone messages, because someone out there is over $1,000 richer today, and they haven't gone to collect their checks yet. And in addition, we are looking for a place to store our refrigerators and freezers. We have this collection of refrigerators and freezers that have been donated by Barry Motzkin and his wife. Barry Motzkin and his wife have actually donated 3. Ralph Garneau has donated 1. Rite Aid Pharmacy has donated another one. And I have donated 1. We have all these different freezers and refrigerators, and we need a place for them, because very recently the Hunger Prevention Nutrition Assistance Program people have come down with a ruling against a lot of canned goods, because there's so much salt in them. And too much salt is not necessarily good for us. So we're relying now more on frozen and fresh foods. So we are really looking forward to a place. So if you know of a place, or if you have a place in Woodstock, we'll be more than happy to pay for the electricity. And if the place that you have is not necessarily wired for all of this electricity, we will pay for the wiring. We desperately need a place. So Josh, tell me what's going on over at Woodstock Apothecary this week. What's happening?
Well, today I'd like to talk to you about vaccines. It's flu season, so everyone always asks about the flu vaccine. So the flu vaccine is now available. You can walk into any pharmacy and get it. People who have Medicare Part D, it's free. You don't have to pay for it. For other people, the various charge from various pharmacies is $25 to $35, depending on where you go. Any pharmacist can do it. You don't need a prescription. The other vaccines that people should be aware of is the pneumonia vaccine. People should get one before the age of 65 and one after the age of 65. Some other things, they're finding that the pertussis vaccine is not as effective over the long term as they thought it was, so they're recommending people get a booster for that. The other vaccine is the shingles vaccine. Shingles is a very painful disease, blisters, nerve pain, things like that affects mainly the elderly. There is a vaccine for it. You can get it when you turn age 50. The closer you get it to age 50, the more effective it is. So we always encourage people get it as soon as your insurance will pay for it. Starting right now, you need a prescription for it, and your doctor has to give it, or a nursing clinic has to give it. But starting in mid-October, I'm not sure the exact day, somewhere between the 14th and the 18th, you'll be able to walk into any pharmacy, and as long as they have proper storage equipment, you'll be allowed to get it there from the pharmacist without getting a script.
Well, now let me ask you something. Is there a wait at Woodstock Pharmacy to get to get at Woodstock Apothecary to get these vaccines?
Well, the flu shot generally takes about 10 minutes, so it's fairly quick. Pneumonia vaccine, same thing, because we have to fill out paperwork and we have to bill your insurance and things like that. And then there's questions that you have to answer. Certain people can't get it. If you're allergic to eggs, for example, you can't get the flu vaccine. If you have certain immunological conditions, you can't get the flu vaccine. But for the vast part, 99% of people can get the flu vaccine. And the wait time, like I said, at our pharmacy is 10 minutes, 15 minutes max. And, I don't know about other pharmacies, but I assume it's similar. Again, different pharmacies charge different prices if your insurance doesn't pay for it, but most insurances do. Under the Obamacare law, it will be kicking in soon that all insurances have to cover these preventative measures. So that's actually a really good thing because we want people to get vaccinated and we want it to be affordable.
Well, now let me ask you something. You mentioned these particular vaccines because these are vaccines that are of interest to seniors. Now, do you administer those vaccines now, or will you be administering those vaccines after mid-October in your pharmacy?
We already administer flu and pneumonia, and the shingles vaccine pharmacies can administer starting the middle of October. We do a shingles clinic. Our last clinic is on October 7th. For that, you still need a prescription, but we have a nursing group come and we give the shot. But you still need a prescription, and you have to call us and set up a time because it's a clinic. But starting mid-October, you'll be able to just walk in and get it. We will have the proper storage because it's a very temperature-sensitive vaccine. It has to be stored at a very certain temperature, otherwise it will become inactive. And if you get that vaccine and then you get shingles a bunch of times, you're going to be very unhappy. So you want to make sure the place you get the shingles vaccine has the proper equipment to store it properly.
And so with shingles, I've seen people with shingles. It's little blisters and it's very, very, and red spots. And it's very, very painful. It's
horribly painful. And you can get it over and over and over and over again. And that's the really horrible part. And that you can just keep getting it. Things like lowered immune function, stress, things like that, poor nutrition can cause it to come out more frequently. But if there's a vaccine for a very painful condition, get it. I mean, vaccines are modern miracles. Vaccines, antibiotics, sanitation, washing hands, sewage systems. These things have saved more lives than anything else throughout the course of human history. As soon as I turn 50, I'll be getting that shingles vaccine. I see every day what happens when people come in and they're in so much pain. Either they didn't know there was a vaccine available for it, or some insurance companies didn't pay for it, and they have an outbreak and they're in so much pain, and I feel horrible for them. So anytime that we can prevent human suffering without any risks, it's great. And again, more and more insurances will start to cover it come mid-October. So if you haven't been covered before, mid-October when it's available, you should try and see if your insurance company pays for it now, because it will be considered a preventative medicine.
If you have not had that vaccine and you have had a breakout of shingles, can you still get the shingle shot?
Yep, a couple weeks after your breakout, then you can get the shot.
And now I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that if you have had chickenpox, you're a candidate for shingles.
Yes, anyone who's had chickenpox can get shingles. But even people who haven't had shingles haven't had chickenpox should get the shingles vaccine. Because as we know, the older you get, if you get chickenpox when you're very old and you haven't been vaccinated, it's very bad. A lot of people get very ill from that. So the shingle shot can help with that. So everyone over the age of 50 should get the shingle shot, with the exception of certain people with certain allergies or immunological conditions. But those questions are asked at the place when you go, and if you're not eligible, they'll tell you. But the vast majority of people are eligible.
If you got a shingle shot when you were 50 and you forgot, because let's face it, we're older, we forget. Can you get another one?
Your doctor will have a record of that.
But if he doesn't have?
You would talk to your doctor about the risks with that. You would talk to your doctor. I'm not really... There's a risk kind of benefit thing there, and the doctor's the best person to go over that with.
Okay. Now, what about the pneumonia shot?
The pneumonia shot, everyone pre-age 65 should get it. and you get one before age 65, just once, and then one after age 65, and that's it, and you're done for life. And the pneumonia vaccine is very, very important. So pneumonia vaccine prevents death, basically. I mean, that's what it does, prevents death and hospitalization. Pneumonia, especially in the elderly, is quite deadly. Lots of people still die from it every year because they're not vaccinated. So vaccination reduces your risk of death and hospitalization.
You know, that's very true. I have read and have felt all of my life that when an older person comes down with pneumonia, that's just a death sentence. That's it.
Yep,
It's
for
all
a
over.
lot of people that is. And that's why we encourage vaccination. There's no risk, again, if you're allergic to one of the constituents or something like that. But it has a tremendous benefit. I mean, soreness at injection site is anytime you stick a piece of metal in someone's arm, that's going to happen. But the other thing why it's important for everyone else to get vaccinated is herd immunity. So for those rare people that can't get protection from the vaccines, the rest of us need to be vaccinated to provide that herd immunity. That's why there's certain children with certain allergies or immunological conditions that can't get vaccines. So they rely on the rest of us to have herd immunity. The problem is you have clusters of people who believe falsely these internet conspiracy rumors and we're losing herd immunity. And it's becoming a huge, huge problem. Now, sometimes it's the cause of these people. They use fake religious exemptions because of things they read on the internet. Sometimes it's a vaccine we find through good research and science is not as effective over the long term, and we need boosters for it, like pertussis. So it's a combination of things. But I'd like to address some of the bad information about vaccines that are going around on the internet.
Okay.
The first, vaccines do not cause autism. Every single large, big study that we've done, independent university study, government study, there's been no link shown between vaccines and autism. Just because some guy is screaming on his blog on the internet that vaccines do this, he has no evidence. Anecdotal stories of a kid developing autism after being given a vaccine. A, most of the time when we look into the cases, that's not actually what happened. And B, that's just anecdotal evidence. There's no proof that the vaccine was the cause of the autism. The other thing is the man who started this whole vaccine controversy was a man by the name of Andrew Wakefield. Andrew Wakefield, what a lot of people don't know, is right before he released his fake study, he filed a patent for his own MMR vaccine. This was purely a way for him to make money because he wanted the government to use his vaccine instead of the one they were using so he could make a ton of money. The other thing that people don't realize is that he was working for a law group. He was on the payroll of a large lawyer firm that wanted to find a way to sue a company to make a lot of money. This guy was purely in it for the money. His study was the most flawed piece of, I'm not even going to use the word science, that you've ever seen. Zero proof. There is no evidence that vaccines cause autism. And then people say, well, the mercury. Well, many years ago we took mercury out of vaccines, and yet the rate of autism continues to increase. So that's clearly, if that was the cause of autism, the rate should have dropped off dramatically, but it hasn't. But there's some things people know. We are better at diagnosing it now. We are better at treating it now. We are better at recognizing it now. So that's number one. People need to realize that. There's no mercury in children's vaccines anymore. But it wouldn't matter. That never caused autism. Kids are getting autism for a number of reasons. Some we don't know. Some are genetic. For example, there was a big study that found that many women who had autistic children lacked the gene to turn synthetic folic acid into folate. Now we know that folate prevents like neural birth defects and neural tube birth defects. So many women, so they're finding that that's a possible cause. Is that 100% verified? No. But it's a possibility. So there's genetic, there's environmental factors, and there's a lot we don't know. A lot of times people are afraid when we say we don't know. But there are things that we don't know. And the thing that people need to realize is when we say we don't know something, it doesn't mean they can just fill in the box with whatever nonsense they read on the internet. That's not how it works. When science says we don't know something, we do research into it. We don't just fill in whatever cockeyed theory we come up off the internet. Mm-hmm. So people need to realize that. Another rumor is you cannot get the flu from the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine is dead pieces of virus. There's no live virus. It's impossible. But what happens is it takes 2 weeks to come into effect. So a lot of times people are were just recently infected, but the symptoms didn't start. So then like a day or two after they get the vaccine, they get sick, and then they blame it on the vaccine.
Right, and it really wasn't the vaccine at all. That was just happening.
Yep.
Wow.
There is a nasal spray flu vaccine that does contain weakened live virus that you can actually get the flu from that. But the injections that everybody gets, you can't get the flu from. Flu vaccine is completely safe for pregnant women. Your child will not develop autism. There is no worry or controversy surrounding that, except on weird internet conspiracy sites. The next time these people claim that, oh, vaccines do this or that, ask them for proof. Ask them for really good research. Again, you can say anything you want on the internet, but people need to provide proof. If you're going to make a claim, you need to provide proof. And extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Well, now, you talked about a nasal vaccine that
For the
does
flu.
have live germs or whatever.
Yeah, weakened virus.
Why would a person take that as opposed to a shot? Why would they do that?
Needle phobia. Many of us, myself
Okay.
included, hate needles. And
Yeah.
that's a rational thing. It's okay to hate needles. And, like when I give blood or get blood work or something done, I don't look. It's It's okay to be afraid of needles. And the person giving you the shot should be caring, should be, all right, don't look, don't tell me when I'm going to get it. Or they're allergic to certain ingredients in the vaccine that we inject you with. The nasal mist has slightly different ingredients. So it could be that. It could be the kid just refuses to get a shot, and so we just stick it up his nose.
Yeah, and just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Well, so that there are some options. So we've covered pneumonia, we've covered flu, we've covered pertussin, we've covered shingles. Is there anything missing?
Well, tetanus. Always make sure your tetanus shot is up to date.
Can you get a tetanus shot at a pharmacy?
No.
You cannot.
Only they are pushing to allow pharmacies to give more shots, but right now you have to get a tetanus shot at your doctor. The reason they want you to do that is like if you step on something, they want the doctor to check it out.
Right.
And a lot of people would just go in and get the shot and not get it checked out. So that's kind of one that should be left to doctors to give, so that the gaping wound in your foot, you actually go and get checked out.
Yes. Yeah.
That's one, because there could be a secondary infection that needs antibiotics or something like that.
Vaccines are a very interesting thing because I've lived in 3 countries, 2 of which were really third world. We kidded ourselves that Mexico was not a third world country, but there were parts of Mexico that were very primitive. And I lived in Venezuela, and when I was there, I saw all the diseases that people in this country know nothing about. They know the names for those diseases. They say, well, none of my children are going to have a typhoid shot. None of my children are going to. And they just don't realize how devastating these illnesses can be.
Yeah. I mean, so when we introduced the polio vaccine in the 40s, the rates of polio dropped off dramatically, and that was 60 some years ago. So people haven't seen it, and they don't know what it's like, because we don't have it anymore, because we literally almost eradicated polio in the world. There are a few pockets in the world where it's hard for us to get into the mountains and vaccinate people, and you have certain religious groups telling people not to vaccinate because it's the government out to get you or some yada yada. But I mean, every single time we introduce a vaccine for a deadly disease, the rates drop so dramatically. And because we haven't had any of those crazy outbreaks in so long, people don't see it. And because we're so rich in this country, we can have this dialogue that vaccines aren't safe, yada yada, because we don't see disease.
Right.
So, frankly, sometimes we need some Darwinism. I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's very true. People in this country have never seen typhoid. And I have seen typhoid. I have seen what a person looks like after typhoid. The people who survive typhoid look like they've come out of Auschwitz at the end. I mean, it's really, really bad. And then once a person survives typhoid, then the whole building and everything that they slept in or on or whatever has got to be totally cleaned or destroyed.
Yep.
And it's life-threatening to their caregivers. It's life-threatening to the medical people. it's really, really difficult. Whereas if they had just had a typhoid shot, and of course smallpox is amazing to me that we don't have smallpox vaccines anymore. And people don't know what smallpox is. They haven't seen how disfiguring it can be. They don't know how sick people can get. It's a really, really devastating illness, and it's scary. It's scary to me. And of course, my children and I both have been completely over inoculated, because every time I got ready to go into another weird country, we took all kinds of shots again. We took them again because I didn't want my children to die from one of those diseases. And so I really feel very strongly about vaccines. And I'm hopeful that if anybody's on the fence, that they'll go and get their shots. And I'm going to have to go and check with my healthcare provider and see about taking all those other shots, because we're the age when we need them. And then we have new vaccines now, which younger people should take, because we should be vaccinated against these different diseases. And of course now, there are a lot of diseases coming into this country because we have so many people coming into this country, and they come into this country sick. Used to, people came into this country through Ellis Island or whatever. They were checked by a physician, and if they were sick, they went into a sick bay. They were not allowed into, and now we just come right on in through walking across a river, or in a boat, or whatever. And if they're sick, they're sick. And if they're not sick, they're not sick. And if it's contagious, well, that's just the way it goes. There's no protection. People do not realize that there is no protection.
Yeah, you need to get your kids vaccinated. If you've never seen a baby with pertussis or whooping cough, as is common, it's horrible, and it's preventable, and that's the worst part. So that's why now in New York State, Governor Cuomo signed a law. Parents who have a baby are now given at the hospital free pertussis vaccines, because they're finding it wears off over time, so you need a booster. And we need to protect our children, and it's every parent's responsibility not just to get their kids vaccinated, but to have their pertussis vaccine updated, because it's not just for us, it's for everyone else. We live in a society, we work together, we live together, we need to take care of each other. And part of taking care of each other is keeping herd immunity up. It is one of the most important things. And we're losing it. We're losing it because of people believing stupid, bad information on the internet, and then people looking to make $1 and a buck off that internet information. And it's wrong. Sure, companies make money off the vaccines, but what you don't realize is there is no more regulated and watched item than vaccines. There's no drug, there's no food you eat, there's nothing that is regulated and watched as a vaccine. Nothing.
That's wonderful to know.
Yep.
It's safe. It's as
the
safe as it can be. Absolutely. At the festival, I saw you, and I didn't get a chance to go up to your booth, but I saw some containers there. What was on your table?
Well, I had a container of nails because I couldn't find any actual loose iron. I don't even know where you would buy that. I had some rocks, some shells, some sidewalk chalk. I had some corn syrup, some sugar, some vegetable oil, and a thing of motor oil, because I don't know where you buy liquid petroleum or even what that is. I also had some charcoal because I couldn't find actual coal. So there were some substitutions due to my... and that represents the ingredients that go into making the average natural vitamin. People eat ground up rocks and shells and vitamin C made from sugar or corn sugar in China. They eat the natural vitamin E is genetically modified soybean oil. I think it's hilarious. They go to these places, and these places slap these big non-GMO stickers in the window. Non-GMOs are horrible. It's destroying our farmers. They're experimenting on us. They haven't been studied. But for a place to slap these stickers in the window, and then at the same time people are shoveling pills down the throat made from these same things that they're against. There's a petition drive in California, it's going to be on the ballot in the fall, called Prop 37. And Prop 37 is to require food that's made with genetically modified ingredients to be labeled. and that's great, and we should all get behind it. Unfortunately, what you can do is donate to groups like the Cornucopia Institute, and they're funneling money into require genetically modified foods to be labeled. You have a right. You are being experimented on. Genetically modified foods have not been tested. They've just been released. They've been tested on rats, but that's meaningless. Rats don't have certain enzymes we have in our digestive. There's many things. So Monsanto is a horrible company. They make lots of farmers commit suicide. They make promises they can't keep. The crop yields are never what they say they are. They promise this magical tomato that lasts forever. What happens is it went rotten faster than a normal tomato. So we do need them labeled. But the hypocrisy that I see is truly jaw-dropping.
Wow. Okay. So you had all these things, and these are things that go into vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently, and by the way, this is Joshua, and he is from Woodstock Apothecary, in case you missed the intro. And he comes every few months and says the most fabulous things. And I can remember when they really weren't vitamins. Mm-hmm. As a kid, I never really saw vitamin until I was like 10 or 11 years old.
You saw cod liver oil.
Well, my mother didn't ever give me any. Oh, but I had some friends. Oh my God, it would be bedtime, and their mother would come with this jar and this spoon, and the kids would scatter. They would run through the house yelling and crying and screaming, and I was just totally mystified because I didn't get any of it, because I don't know why I didn't get any cod liver oil. But that was all we got, and that was all there was. And then finally, when I was like almost adolescent, vitamins began to come out a little bit, and I've been taking vitamins in the form of pills. And then all of a sudden, I got what I'm calling vitamins, but they're not vitamins. You don't get vitamins anymore.
No, you get synthetic chemicals made to resemble vitamins and rocks and things like that.
But I don't even get that. I get powders. What is this?
You get just powdered chemicals instead of chemicals in pill form. I mean, the first vitamin was invented in 1925 by what was then called the Seraphin Corporation. It is now the Pines Corporation. It was wheatgrass tablet. It was just ground up wheatgrass. But it's way cheaper for companies to just throw a bunch of chemicals synthesized in China in a big pharmaceutical plant than it is to provide actual real food. And what a lot of companies do now is they take those same synthetic vitamins and feed it to yeast and they call it real food, which that's not. Food grows in the soil. It grows in the dirt with the sun and the rain and all of that. And that's where food comes from, a farm, not a lab and a tank in a lab. Food comes from a farm. I can't say that enough. But no, people don't get vitamins. They get what's cheap for the chemical companies. And I call them chemical companies. They're not supplying nutrition or vitamins. They're supplying chemicals. They're chemical companies. The number one selling vitamin company in the world is Pfizer. They own Centrum, which is the number one selling vitamin, and they own Emergency, which is the number one selling vitamin C. And people guzzle that like it's good for them. It's made from corn syrup and chalk and fructose. It's like a giant thing of corn. It's all made from various refined corn things. There's nothing natural about these things, yet they think it is because they plaster oranges all over the label on it, when the only orange in there is natural flavor, and that's the most meaningless thing in the world. You can put whatever you want in natural flavor. That doesn't mean anything. So there's no oranges in the product.
So how do you know you're getting something that isn't that?
Mm-hmm. So when you look at your label on your vitamin, it should just be a list of foods. It shouldn't be a bunch of chemical names of vitamins. It should just be lists of foods. And that's how you know. If they're listing out all these chemical names, it's not food. It should say wheatgrass or I don't know, wheat germ and barley malt and all different foods, liver, just different foods, different vegetables. That's what your vitamins should say.
Okay, that's what I did.
But what happens
I got this jar, this bottle, and it's powdered, and it's got, in the tiniest print, I have to use a magnifying glass to read it, thousands of words, and they're all plants.
They're just food, yeah.
They're just food.
Because plants take rocks, because rocks are what's in the soil, and they turn it into forms of nutrients that are beneficial. For example, if I handed you a piece of sidewalk chalk, you wouldn't eat it. And yet, because they round it into a pill, people swallow it every day. If you went to your doctor and said, I'm eating chalk, he'd say, oh, you have pica, we have to treat that. But at the same time, he'll then give you a pill of chalk and pretend like it's fine. But those chalk calcium pills, for example, have been found to increase the risk of heart attack and stroke, increase the risk of plaque in the arteries, and they don't decrease fracture or build bone, because humans are supposed to get nutrition from plants because they turn the rocks into a usable form. We don't digest rocks well. It's just not something we've evolved to digest. Maybe at the rate we're swallowing rock pills, we may 10, 20,000 years from now have the ability to digest and use rocks. But as of right now, we are meant to eat like plants.
Well, it was very interesting because I got my first bottle of vitamins or vitamin powder, which is food.
Yeah, food
all
powder.
kinds of food. And I use that in my morning drink every morning. And that was like maybe a month or two or whatever,
Yeah.
It took. So now the season has changed and the formula is different.
Yeah. Well, we work with companies that they have to wait for the harvest. Like we have one company, Nutriplex, that's out of several things because they're waiting for the harvest. They can't call up Hoffman LaRoche, which manufactures all this synthetic ascorbic acid, and say, hey, I need a kilo of this. No, they have to call up the farm and say, hey, when's the harvest going to be done? And that's the way it should be. I'd rather they be out of a product for a while and wait for food than to just fill it up with a bunch of chemicals. The American diet, we get plenty of crap and junk food and refined chemicals. We certainly don't need to be supplementing with that.
You're right.
So we need food. And so if people are going to take supplements, they should be food. Now, eating a good diet is obviously more important than taking supplements. And if the choice is buy vegetables or buy your whole food supplements, even, you should buy the vegetables if that's a choice you make. No supplement, no matter how good it is, can ever replicate the goodness of a good home-cooked meal. But if you're going to take pills, they should be food. And you should just read it, and it should be a list of foods. That it shouldn't be a chemical list of vitamins. That's how you know you're not getting a natural thing.
Okay, so I've got one that's just solid food.
Yeah.
Then I've got another one that says bee food. Mm-hmm. So that's another list of plants.
Yeah, those are foods that are rich in B vitamins, for example.
And then we did the calcium, magnesium.
And that's broccoli, shiitake mushrooms, things like that. So, like in the bee food, people don't realize, like, they take hundreds of milligrams of synthetic B vitamins. When, like, of thiamine, you need like 1.7 milligrams a day. But they're just routinely dosing themselves with hundreds of milligrams. And what we find, the Women's Health Initiative followed over 100,000 women. Women who took those types of vitamins had a lower life expectancy. Because they're not taking vitamins, they're taking things made from genetically modified bacteria and petrochemicals. And then they notice, oh, my urine is phosphorescent yellow. And they have that disgusting smell and taste. But you've never eaten a food rich in B vitamins where your urine all of a sudden turns this magical yellow color. Because when you eat a food, all the vitamins are attached to specific cofactors that the body needs. Now, some companies like to think they can take these synthetic vitamins and mix it with a little bit of food and that will magically fix it. It won't. It doesn't just magically reattach. So you need food.
Well, so we've got this food, we've got this powder, and I opened up the calcium magnesium powder, and I scooped up a teaspoonful of it, and it wasn't white.
No.
Wow.
I mean, the white stuff is just raw. It's just ground up chalk, so of course it's white.
Right. That hit me. It hit me. It's like, whoa.
Yes.
This is the real thing.
I mean, very few foods are white. I mean, think about it. You have white asparagus, but that's only white because we grow it without sunlight.
Right.
You have cauliflower, but that's not a pure white. That's kind of an off-white. And now they have yellow and orange, and they have orange and purple and green cauliflower, which are all really good for you, and you should eat them, by the way. But very few foods are white. I mean, think about it. White food is generally devoid of nutrition.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, very few foods are a pure white. I mean, you have the white of an apple, but the peel is where most of the nutrition in the apple is. It's those bright colors that provide benefits.
Well, so if a person who really, because most of us, I mean, you know, if you go down the aisle of any pharmacy, any grocery store, if you go down the vitamin aisle, if you are the least, now this is my opinion, if you go down the vitamin aisle and you really look at what's on the shelves.
It's all the same stuff,
By
just
the-
repackaged.
Well, but by the time you start here and by the time you get here, I mean, I have a headache and I'm cross-eyed and, and you try to read the stuff, forget it. So how do you get through this maze? How do you figure, I mean, even at Woodstock Apothecary, you guys have this selection. I went in there and I was totally confused. I was like, do I get this one?
Well, that's why
or this one? Or...
Well, that's why you turn over the side of the label. If it's a list of a bunch of chemical names, don't buy it. If it's a list of foods, buy it.
Yeah, but at your place, you've got several different brands.
Because some are for vegetarians. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're buying it for, I guess. But at least if you buy something that's just a list of foods, you're going to get some benefit, provided the company mills it and dries it and harvests it properly. You're going to at least get some benefit, whereas you're buying this list of chemicals, you're not getting any benefit, and in some cases you're getting harm.
Okay, so you just gave me a really valuable tip. You said if you're a vegetarian, so what you normally eat affects what kind of a vitamin powder or whatever you should get. I think age probably has a lot to do with it.
Somewhat, yeah, I mean somewhat.
So, does sex have a lot to do with it? I mean, does it make a difference whether you're a man or a woman?
No, I mean, we all need healthy food. So they sometimes add like an herb or an ingredient that's good for men or women, sure. But for the most part, like the food powders you get, men or women can use them because they're just ground up healthy food.
Well, now, over in the Woodstock Apothecary, do you have formulas that are low iron? Or do you have formulas that are high iron?
Yeah, we do have formulas with more or less iron. Well, it depends. The form of iron that is not good for men is the ground up nail form of iron. I mean, that form of iron is not good for men. That causes constipation, yada yada. But iron in food, there's no risk. It doesn't have the same risk. It's completely different.
Okay, so if you are an older woman, and or if you're a man, and you are in just the ordinary store, then you would go for a vitamin that did not have iron. But if you are...
I would not take that vitamin at all.
Right, but I mean, we're going to go there. So,
Okay.
Say you're there, you've figured it out, okay, But then over at Woodstock Apothecary, the selection is different. The criteria is different.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we have some of those synthetic vitamins because people want them, but we give people the information and tell them, hey, that's not really a good idea. We actually give them the information. We're very honest. If something is junk, we tell them. I mean, 99% of vitamins are just the same chemicals relabeled and then companies claiming their synthetic chemical is better even though they came from the same place.
So basically what you need to do, you don't have to worry about whether or not there's iron or not if you're getting
a food iron.
If you're getting a food supplement.
Yeah.
They're really not vitamins, they're supplements.
They're just
right?
supplemental food. I think of the food supplements as a meal. They're just a meal. They got proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and then nutrients found as they would in food. They're more of like a supplemental meal. They're not a synthetic isolated vitamin. They're just supplemental food.
Now, I take my powders in a protein drink, and I get the powder at your place. Are the protein powders that you guys sell, are they vastly different from the protein powders?
Well,
how do you pick a decent? I mean, there's dozens of protein powders. Do you pick one because this has got a cute label?
You should never buy anything because that has a cute label. So
you just shot a hole in how. I mean that's just how I've been doing it all my life.
So what you want to look for is, so let's start with a little biology. So protein is measured on a biological value scale. It goes from 1 to 110. The higher the number, the better. So we want to obviously shoot for a protein with the higher number. So you have proteins like rice protein, worst protein, low biological value, also very high in arsenic. So not a good choice.
Wow.
Then you have your seed proteins like flaxseed, hemp seed, chia seed. Those all contain a protein, but still very low biological value. Then you have the highest of the vegetable proteins, which is pea protein at 65. So all of these are very low. Then you start to get into your animal-based proteins. You have beef protein, egg protein, and whey protein. Whey protein is the best protein. It has a biological value of 110. So it's at the top of the scale. Now, whey protein is derived from dairy, but good whey protein does not have any lactose or casein in it. So people who are allergic to that don't have that problem. But then what we want to look for is the quality of the whey protein. Where does the milk come from? Are the cows given hormones and antibiotics, things like that? So all the whey protein that we have, we'll only stock whey protein if it is from New Zealand, because all the cows in New Zealand eat grass. And cows, that's what cows eat. Cows don't eat corn. That's not what cows are supposed to eat. They can't digest it. That's why we have to dose them with antibiotics all the time. They don't eat corn. They don't eat grains. They eat grass and clover and alfalfa and hay. You know, that's what cows eat. That's what they're meant to eat. So we want whey protein from grass-fed cows, not shot full of hormones and not given antibiotics. So New Zealand is really the only place where you can get sufficient quantity of it. So because they have lots of cows and they have pasture land all year round. So we want whey protein from grass-fed cows and only from New Zealand. So your whey protein should say on the front, grass-fed from New Zealand. No hormones, no antibiotics. And that's what you want to look for.
That is scary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there is only one place in the world.
To get really good quality protein, yeah.
What day is it today? It's Friday.
It's Friday.
At this moment in New Zealand, it is not Friday.
I do not know
what day. It is a long way away.
Okay.
I mean, that is a long way. I mean, I guess, you know, as you get older, you develop neuroses and phobias and things. Anything from China, this is terrible, but I just don't trust it.
No, that's okay. I mean, a lot of things from China aren't good. I'm not gonna sit there and defend them. And there are small farmers in the U.S. that just feed their cows grass and no hormones, no eggs, but they don't produce anywhere near the volume that would supply like a whey protein company. So that's why we don't use them. But I do suggest people buy milk from local grass-fed farmers. If you're going to drink cow's milk, you should buy it from local farmers that just feed grass. But they in no way produce anywhere near a quantity that would supply a supplement company selling whey protein. So we get it from New Zealand, where they have a gazillion cows all walking around outside eating grass and hay and whatever it is else that cows eat. They're not fed corn. Cows should not eat corn.
So, if we're gonna, this goes from the whey, because I mean, I'm interested in this because I drink a drink every day. I mean, this is something that I've been doing for years, and it's what I do. I mean, you know, this is how I feel that I get my nutrition. So, we're saying that the whey's got to come from New Zealand. And then we say, by the next token, that there's some milk that's properly harvested.
In this country, yeah.
There is some.
But again, it's not even enough to supply, a whey protein company.
Can you name some dairies?
Some good dairy farmers? Sure. Like Hudson Valley Fresh is a local dairy cooperative where the cows walk around, and it's a cooperative of several local farmers. Hawthorne Valley Farms up in Ghent, for example. So those are two examples. There are more. Organic Valley sells pasture milk, and that one you can get anywhere. That's a nice, easy one. But the big organic names, Horizon, Dean, Aurora, all the private label organics, there's nothing organic about them. They come from giant factory farms out in the Midwest. Most organic milk is not organic at all. The cows aren't given access to pasture. The only national brand that's truly organic is Organic Valley.
So that when I go to the grocery store and I pay an extra $1 for something that says organic?
If you're not buying Organic Valley in a regular supermarket, it's not organic. You are getting milk from cows that eat corn all day and sit in a feedlot. It's no more... The only difference is maybe the cows aren't given hormones, but it's no more organic than regular milk.
So if I want to make sure that the milk... And because I really don't drink the milk, but I do eat the yogurt.
Yep, so Hawthorne Valley Farms, 7 Stars, Butterworks, those are all great companies that make true pastured yogurt. Hawthorne, Stonyfield and Brown Cow, they're Dannon. They're owned by Dannon. There's nothing, let's not pretend there. You want real yogurt, you buy from Hawthorne Valley, 7 Stars, Butterworks. I know like Sunflower carries and Mother Earth carries like Hawthorne Valley and Butterworks and 7 Stars. And you could tell, yogurt shouldn't be white. yogurt shouldn't be white. It should be like an off yellowish color. And that means that the cow was eating grass because of the carotenoids in the milk. And people don't realize that yogurt shouldn't be white.
You are so correct. I had some Hawthorne Valley yogurt for the first time.
It's not pure white.
And I'm used to just, grabbing yogurt. And for some reason I ended up with this carton of Hawthorne Valley yogurt. And I opened it up and the color was...
It's completely different.
Totally
That's
beautiful.
the color that milk's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be yogurt, especially because of the fermentation. It shouldn't be white. It should be like a yellowish kind of color because that means there's carotenoids. Butter shouldn't be white. It should be a yellowish color. But most butter they add coloring to make it that color. Butter from a pastured cow is not white. It's yellow. And we can't just butter and dairy products from truly grass-fed animals contains high levels of CLA, which helps to prevent breast cancer. Contains something called the Wilson factor, which helps to prevent stiffness. They contain high levels of carotenoids and good vitamin A, and a whole bunch of healthy things that you don't get from commercial milk. Commercial milk, maybe you get some calcium and the added vitamin D, but pastured dairy products, you get so much more. You get so many health promoting benefits. You get omega-3s, which are super important and super beneficial. You don't get that from grain-fed milk.
So basically what you're telling me is that if I'm going to shop for the most nutritious food, I can just really forget the organic label.
Yeah, well, Hawthorne Valley's organic.
But I need to deal more with the brands than with the label because a lot of people just, if it's organic or not organic, and that's not.
The organic label was made so General Mills, Pepsi, Coke, Hain Celestial, all of those, Dean, which is owns all the not organic but says organic milk, all of those all the time, so they could have an easier time selling their product. It wasn't made for farmers. One of the best companies, and you can usually only get this in health food stores, is called Eden Foods. Eden Foods is an independently owned company. They refuse to take the organic label, even though they are truly organic, because they know that it's a mockery and it's a joke. And if you talk to that guy, he'll tell you, and he does real organic. You don't get, they make canned tomatoes and pasta and things like that, but you don't get real, or he can even explain it to you better than I can about what a sham it is. There's a website, if you Google Cornucopia Institute, they do all these exposés into these organic companies. You can see pictures of the fake organic farms where they get the Aurora and Horizon milk from and things like that. But yeah, I mean, there are great companies, Eden Foods, Organic Valley. There are really good companies out there, but they're few and far between.
What about Ronnie Brook?
Ronnie Brook's a great company. They're great. They don't have the organic seal, so I didn't, but they're a great farm. Their cows get to walk around outside and be all cow-like. Yeah, no, they're a great company.
And they make wonderful ice cream.
Yeah,
You can get fat. You can get so fat eating their ice cream. It's so wonderful.
You can. No, they're a great company. They're a really great company. And it's kind of cool because you get the milk in the glass bottle. So that's kind of fun. Yeah,
it is fun. And they have nice little tote bags and things.
Yeah.
Now, what about Chobani?
It's not grass-fed. And that yogurt is so loaded up with sugar. Forget it. If you want Greek yogurt, the best company to buy from is Fage. Fage, F-A-G-E. They're an upstate New York company. They treat their employees really well. They buy from all local New York State farmers and some of the surrounding states. They're a really good company. They're an upstate New York company. So if you want Greek yogurt, buy Fage. Chobani is also upstate New York, but they shove sugar in everything like it's going out of style. So I'm a no-go on the Chobani. There's too much sugar in it.
Okay. Well, that's why we're here. By the way, this is Josh, and he's from the Woodstock Apothecary. And, when are you there? When are you at the
Every
apothecary?
day except Tuesday.
Now, are you ever at any of the other apothecaries?
Nope. We only have one other one, but I don't go there.
Is there a clone of you over at the other one?
We are actually hiring. We are looking to hire 2 people to help with our nutrition. I'm going to shamelessly plug this job need.
Do it.
Lots of people need jobs. These are very good paying jobs. They have health benefits. They are not minimum wage. We are looking for 2 people to assist us in the natural side of our businesses. One for our Saugerties location and one for our Woodstock location. Please drop off an application. You don't have to have a special degree. You just have to have some fire in your belly. You have to be passionate, and you have to have a healthy sense of skepticism. Those are our 3 requirements, which, again, it doesn't matter what your education. If you don't have those 3, don't bother stopping by.
Well, now, if you really don't know that much about health,
we will train that. That is not a problem. But we can't train skepticism. We can't train passion, and we can't train a fire in the belly. Those are 3 things we can't train. So you have to come with those. We will teach you everything else. Any trained monkey can order products and stock a shelves. We will teach you the nutrition knowledge, the vitamin knowledge, all of that. No problem. But you have to bring the passion. You have to bring the fire. And you have to bring the skepticism. And we're 2 people, very good paying, health benefits, yada yada, paid vacation.
The main thing that you did talk about that really just, because I've been toying, I'm on the verge of starting my next book, and I've been working with it. The fire in the belly. The fire
Can't
in the
teach
belly.
that.
Right, and that's what keeps us alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what keeps us going.
I don't want some person who just shows up and it's a job to them. I want them to be passionate about it like I am, and to really care about making people better. But at the same time, we don't want people to get scammed by the latest fad and the latest internet thing, or Dr. Oz. Stop watching Dr. Oz. He does not give good advice. Green coffee beans will not make you lose weight. If one more person calls about that, I'm disconnecting the phone. But we can't teach the skepticism. We want someone who's not just going to believe what these people tell you. I mean, we have companies that come in and take us out to dinner and throw literature at us and want us to sell their products. And I mean, I've been taken in a limo to visit factories and fancy dinners and things. So we don't want that to sway people either, because people think the drug company spoils doctors and stuff. I can guarantee you I've been on more dinners and more trips paid for by companies than any doctor around here. And so you have to make it so you don't let that influence you. Like, we have lots of companies that have sent me on very expensive paid trips. We don't carry their products. So you have to not let that affect you. And so the vitamin industry is the pharmaceutical for the most part. So we need that healthy sense of skepticism, that when Rep X comes in selling you a raw whole food vitamin, you need to realize that no food actually goes into making this product. And I've been to that factory. That's why I use that anecdote a lot. Because they sent me there on a trip. They wanted me to carry their raw whole food vitamin. They know I'm into food vitamins. And I get there. There's no food anywhere. It's just 2 tanks where they feed synthetic vitamins to yeast. And I'm like, this says raw food on the label that you gave me to look at. Where's the food? So you need that inherent sense of skepticism. That's very important. And you need to be able to call companies out on their crap. And you can't be afraid of someone getting mad at you. You have to be bold.
Well, anytime you tell them no, they want you to buy, and if you don't buy, then they're going to get upset, of course.
Yeah.
After all, they bought you dinner.
Yeah, but I get people threatening to sue me all the time for exposing them. And I'm fine with that. By the way, since we only have 2 minutes left, oscillococcinum, or whatever the hell it's called, is not an effective flu remedy. Boiron just lost a lawsuit. They could provide no evidence that it worked, no evidence for it to work. It's a scam. Don't buy it.
But do get a flu shot.
Do get a flu shot, as long as you're not allergic to eggs.
And if you do or you don't get a flu shot, and you come down with the flu, what should you take?
Rest and fluids, and a funny movie, and homemade soup.
Very good.
That's rest, and you need to rest. I can't say that people don't rest; they just push through. Rest is very important. Fluids, it's very important to stay hydrated.
Yes.
If you get diarrhea or anything like that, it's very important to get electrolytes. So eat some oranges or something like that.
Yes.
Make sure that you rest and you watch some funny movies and you eat soup.
Yeah. Good soup.
Mm-hmm. Good homemade soup, not stuff out of a can.
That is a very special commodity. Soup is a very
That's right.
special commodity.
Call your mom and make her make you soup.
Yeah, and if you feel like giving any food to the food pantry, we need soup. We need peanut butter. We need soup.
There you go.
And we're hoping that you'll come back soon, because we
Just
need
let me
another
know
installment. Listen, I brought my calendar. We're going to do this again.
Okay.
And thank you so much,
You're
Joshua.
welcome.
Thank you so much. And Ellen, thank you.
Thank you.
Say good night.
Good night.